So my name is John Draper. I'm the VP of Research and Training at Stem Cell Network, and I'm going to hand over to Kate Murray, Stem Cell Network's CEO and President, to start off the webinar.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon to all of you from whatever part of the country you're in. We're really happy that you've carved out of some time out of a lovely August day to join us to learn about our upcoming funding competition that the Stem Cell Network will be holding this fall. So today we'll walk you through what are some changes for the round two funding competition, and what applicants can expect to need to know to be successful within the competition. So we'll just move on to the next slide. This is our overview for today. We'll give folks a bit of a background about Stem Cell Network. We'll talk about the competition scope and timelines, and then go through criteria and the different funding opportunities in this fall's program, as well as we will let you know about who our joint funded partners are for this competition. And of course, we've got plenty of time to do Q's and A's so that we can make sure that your questions have been answered. So who's the Stem Cell Network? I hope many of you know who the Stem Cell Network is, but we are a national network of stem cell researchers, of trainees, bioengineers, ethicists, and clinicians, companies, and academics from across the country. Stem Cell Network is currently celebrating its 25th anniversary. In fact, John, we should have put up our 25th anniversary logo.
Good.
I hope many of you will be joining us at the Tilla meetings this fall to help celebrate us in our 25th. So the Stem Cell Network, we have four main objectives and focus areas. We fund research in the regenerative medicine space. We do that from development through to early stage clinical trials. A major piece of activity for us is training the next generation of talent for the jobs of tomorrow, whether those are in academia or whether those are outside in biotech industry, policy spaces, etc. We also have an important focus on knowledge mobilization, ensuring that there is a solid uptake of the research that you produce in the field, both nationally and internationally. We also look to ensure that evidence and expert insights are provided to policymakers as they think about how best to support regenerative medicine in the years to come. And finally, we have introduced a new area of focus around commercialization readiness. The Stem Cell Network has always had at its core the goal of following the research, moving with the research as it develops. And now we're seeing, as more and more research enters into the translational space, a desire to have it commercialized. And that means helping our community prepare for that. We do that through training, through now offering incubation investment awards, which go directly to companies. And we do that by engaging with experts who are working within the marketplace, within hospitals, and across the adoption pipeline. So on that, I'll move to the next slide, where we'll get into talking about timelines for this competition and our overall funding. So the Strategic Science Fund is a federal program where the Stem Cell Network derives its overall support. We have been fortunate to receive funding for the 2025-2029 period from the federal government through the SSF. Overall, from that funding, we have 32.4 million allocated to supporting research activities. As such, we have broken our funding competitions out into two. And we ran one competition already that started in fall 2024. And through that, we were able to support 36 regenerative medicine projects, including 3 clinical trials. Now we'll open this new competition, which we hope to see upwards of $10 million invested. Some of you may be saying, well, that doesn't equal 32.4 million. You're right, it doesn't. Research is also supported through specialized research workshops and symposiums, and goes into our Tillamookilla meetings and also into some other buckets that eventually get us to that full 32.4 million. So this year, and what we're talking about today, is round 2 of this cycle 5, and we've got up to 10 million to deploy across the country. So let's keep going. John's now going to talk about what regenerative medicine means to us and how we define it. So over to you.
Thanks, Kate. So as Kate's alluded to, Stem Cell Network has a mandate from the federal government for supporting regenerative medicine nationally in Canada. And therefore, all of the projects that SCN funds must be regenerative in nature or use stem cells to address the proposed research problem. To help guide researchers, we have a definition that we use. This is an accepted definition within the field that it's taken from Nature. And this is that regenerative medicine is the branch of medicine that develops methods to regrow, repair, replace damaged or diseased cells, organs, and tissues. Regenerative medicine includes the generation and use of therapeutic stem cells, tissue engineering, the production of artificial organs. And I think it's a good idea for researchers to carefully read this and make sure that their projects that they're proposing are within this area. So SCN has, related to this, SCN has eligible projects that it can support, and these are listed here. I won't go into detail for each of these ones. By the way, slides and the recording of this particular presentation will be available later, so you can go into depth with the details of these later on. But to be eligible for funding, projects must fit within one or more of the eligible projects listed here. Enabling technologies are eligible only when they directly address a regenerative medicine specific need in a development, manufacturing, characterization, delivery, or clinical translation, and align with one of the eligible categories that are shown here. General purpose technologies that have regenerative medicine applications but are not developed to address regenerative medicine specific challenges are not eligible. So I think I'm also going to talk just about how this is actually measured during the process of the application. So we have an LOI phase and then a full application phase. Successful LOIs that are eligible are invited to the full application phase. And during the LOI phase, a screening process determines whether a proposal can move forward to the application, the full application stage. And there's 3 criteria that are assessed, essentially whether a project demonstrates a clear regenerative medicine focus. For instance, is there a regenerative mechanism of action underlying the proposed research? Does it define a clear regenerative medicine outcome? For instance, the proposed project or therapy or output leads to or enables regrowth, repair, or replacement of damaged or diseased cells, organs, or tissues? And does it align with these project categories shown here as well? So please do consider these points when writing your LOI and completing those sections that are help us evaluate the eligibility. We have applications from researchers that are not working directly in this field, and we do have to triage those applications. And so your careful and attention on this particular part of the application is going to be important. And one final point to note is that all applications to Stem Cell Network are treated as new applications. So here's the timeline of the round 2 funding competition. As I just mentioned, LOIs they will open at the end of the month. Labor Day comes a little bit late, so we're starting slightly earlier this year. But we still provide that 3-week window for LOIs, and those will be due during September the 21st. We will then, around October the 7th, we hope to be able to provide full outcome notification to applicants for their LOI, and then for those LOIs that are eligible, they will be moved forward to a full application. The deadline for full application is November 24th of 2026. And then from the point we receive the applications through to around March, we'll be undertaking the peer review process. And then we anticipate notifying applicants of the outcomes towards the end of March with an award date that starts on April 1st. And importantly, there'll be, as for all stem cell network funded projects, there'll be midterm progress reporting and then final progress reporting as well. So just a little bit about that process of peer review. We operate a two-stage peer review, and this is, if you are new to Stem Cell Network, this is probably different than that you may have encountered, for instance, through CIHR. Stage one is an international peer review, which assesses the scientific and commercialization merit of the application. Stage two is where our research management committee comes in and they take the outputs from stage one and then combine that with an assessment of the different sections of the application that allows Stem Cell Network to meet the strategic mandate that the federal government has given Stem Cell Network. The Research Management Committee then makes recommendations and passes those to the Board of Directors, who then make the final funding decision on outcomes for which awards will be made. So another element that differs potentially from other funding sources that you may have worked with is the continual review process that Stem Cell Network operates. And so all of the applications that we receive, the proposals are driven by milestones and deliverables. And those milestones and deliverables are assessed during the lifetime of the project, typically on the anniversary of the project start. And then they will be assessed by the Research Management Committee for whether progress is acceptable towards those milestones and deliverables. And the Research Management Committee then makes recommendations based upon that progress as to whether funding should be continued, or if there are challenges, maybe it needs to be withheld until particular aspects are met, or in very rare cases, it can be cut. And sometimes when we have sufficient funds, there is also the opportunity to supplement projects that are achieving above and beyond the milestones and deliverables that they've described there. This is an important distinction, and we make this clear up front because this is an expectation for the researchers to take this component very seriously when they're coming into it, because the continuation of the project is based upon your ability to meet the milestones and deliverables. Okay. So this is unchanged from the last round. We still use Proposal Central as the portal for accepting applications to our funding competitions. There will be reference documents available through Proposal Central and Stem Cell Network's website as well. And these will include things like the LOI instructions, the program-specific guidelines and application instructions, and then frequently asked question documents as well. A new requirement for applicants this time is you do have to have an ORCID ID to apply. Stem Cell Network is now part of the ORCID Canadian Consortium, and we will be using the ORCID ID as part of the application process. Two other aspects that I think are important as well. Only investigators receiving Stem Cell Network funds should be listed as lead or co-investigators. If there is a researcher who is participating in the project but not receiving funds, they are then just listed as a collaborator. And the institution affiliation for each investigator that is receiving funds must match the institution that will receive the project funding. So if you have multiple affiliations, the affiliation that you list when you're applying should be the one that you will actually be doing the work with and that will receive those funds. This will slow down the application, the contracting process if we don't have that correct at the point of application. So that's just an FYI. And then we have contact as well. Stem Cell Network is open to questions and will engage with researchers applying at all points during the application process. And you can do that through research SCN at stemcellnetwork.ca. Technical questions about the Proposal Central portal, we don't have the capacity to answer in the same way that Proposal Central does. So we direct people to Proposal Central to do that. And you can see the numbers for that there as well. So I'm just now going to talk about the general criteria and some of the general criteria and requirements for the funding programs that we're going to be offering. So, as mentioned, one of the common criteria for all programming is that there must be a regenerative medicine focus and the potential for the research to move along the translational pipeline. Stem Cell Network is all focused on the translation of regenerative medicine discoveries towards patients, so this is a key requirement as well. And therefore, there must be a clear translational plan that describes the milestones, partnerships, and other outputs that are going to actually move this forward as well. So that's an important component here. We ask that applicants describe the best practices and measures that they'll adopt to ensure robust, unbiased, and reproducible results. And then there are other components that are required within our applications, including EDI, knowledge mobilization, and HQP plans as well, that have to be submitted. All applications to Stem Cell Network should have some form of non-federal partnership. This Stem Cell Network is mandated by the federal government to have partnering on the awards that it makes. We refer to this type of partnering as direct partnering, and this will provide in-kind and cash contributions. And you can also have leverage partnering as well. That would be, for instance, federal sources, CIHR, etc. But for partnerships in general, there should be letters of support, and that's the requirements for that are described in the instruction documents. For applications, for applicants, there is actually a maximum number of applications that you can put into any competition. So a lead investigator is restricted to one LOI submission and full application per program, with a maximum of 2 applications per competition. So you could, for instance, put in an impact and an accelerator program award application, and you could be a co-investigator on another one as well. But there is a hard limit on 2 applications as the lead applicant. And then there are some eligibility requirements that are listed there that I won't go into detail about. And then finally, I'm sure everyone's aware of the changes that AI is making to the way that many aspects of life are being conducted. And Stem Cell recognizes that this is also a feature in science as well. And so in the preparation of applications, there is actually a new policy that we have for AI use. Individuals should read that. And it will be made available as well. I think it's important to note that you have to declare use in certain situations, and the policy describes those situations. And the applicants that choose to use AI will not be disadvantaged or advantaged solely because they actually choose to use AI or not use it as well, provided that they stay within and comply with SCN's AI policy. As I said, these documents will be available and you'll be able to scrutinize those in detail. Okay, so I'm not going to go to too much detail here because I'm sure everyone is familiar with research security now. So Stem Cell Network has to comply with the federal government's requirements for research security. And so this means that STRAC and NSGRP both apply. And because regenerative medicine in general is a sensitive technology research area, every application to the Stem Cell Network must satisfy the research security requirements. And that means that you're going to have to submit forms with your application that provide attestations for the investigators that they are not collaborating or affiliated with organizations on the named research organization list. And if you are having a private sector partner as part of your application, then you need to complete a risk assessment form. Oh, I should say as well that these forms should be submitted at the point of application as well. The required training, Stem Cell Network has two pieces of major required training. The sex and gender in research, these are the CIHR modules that many of you will already have completed. And so course one, the sex and gender in biomedical research is required for all researchers applying, and course two and three only apply when you're using human subjects. And those certificates only we're now changing to just request those to be presented at the point of awarding. So when we contact you regarding a notification of award, we'll ask for submission of those certificates. You don't have to submit them at the point of application. The same goes with the research training certificates. This is different than the forms. The forms have to be submitted at the point of application, but the certificates for the training only at the point of awarding. And now, Kate, I'm going to hand over to you to go through some of the programming for this round.
Thanks, John. Okay, so the round two program, it spans the translational continuum from innovation through to preclinical development, clinical translation. The portfolio also includes our ELSI component, the ethical, legal, social implications, and health economics research for the broader impacts and implementation on the field of regenerative medicine. You'll see that for this competition overall, we're offering 4 different programs. And so I'm just going to run through and give you a bit of a high level on each one of those programs. And will be more criteria and information once the competition is fully launched. But the first program is our Early Career Researcher Jumpstart Awards. These awards, they support ECRs from the health, the bioengineering, and social sciences who are within the first 5 years of their initial academic appointment. Projects can focus on development or high-risk innovative regenerative medicine research that has the potential to be translated in the coming years. Pro tip, always good to be able to demonstrate the translational path you're thinking about when you're writing your application. ECRs, they must show how that project really will also expand and be built out over a longer term for regenerative medicine within their lab so that they'll have a larger regenerative medicine research program operating in their lab. So that's our early career researchers. Impact Awards, one of our most popular programs, tried and true, always lots of interest. Projects here need to be in the TRL levels of 2 to 4. They need to articulate a translational bench to bedside path of the research and where the proposed research stands along the pathway. TRLs 2 to 4, this encompasses the refinement of therapeutic approaches, experimental proof of concept, and preclinical optimization to establish safety, efficacy, and translational potential. We'll make sure that there's links that describe TRLs for those who need to do a double check. Projects can involve, as you know, generally noted here, proof of principle experiments for gene and or cell therapy development, development of new models and expression of epigenetic studies to understand how behavior of stem cell and progenitor cells in disease operate in relevant settings. Seed research avenues or building intellectual property out that will yield Canadian translational or commercialization activity is also in scope for our impact awards. If we move on to what I call our accelerators, the Accelerating Clinical Translation Awards, these projects would be primarily in the TRL 4 to 6 range with limited or very advanced TRL3 activities permitted if it's well justified. So TRLs 4 to 6 support projects that are progressing from preclinical optimization and demonstration of safety and efficacy through product characterization and manufacturing, development to regulatory readiness, and the generation or use of clinical data. So we're really looking here for multidisciplinary projects that have a pathway to the clinic within a 5-year period of time. We're trying to support with this program the late preclinical, early clinical translation activities. And that could include technology optimization, some manufacturing, CMC development, validation studies, and clinical trial readiness, excluding trial conduct. This program also supports translational ELSI and health economics research that's associated with ongoing trials or soon to be trials, where it enables the next phase of activity. So that's also important because we want to be able to understand is the intellectual property, is the therapy that's being developed going to have receptors? So what do the health economics look like? Is this going to be a competitive product or therapy that is likely to be picked up in years to come? Impact, Elsie, and the health economic stream. This is going to support the knowledge translation and implementation of regenerative medicine research. The focus is on that social, the economic, technological, regulatory, patient, or ethical questions and challenges that should be addressed to support the advancement of regenerative medicine in Canada and globally. Projects can focus on outputs that go beyond traditional academic projects. So if the output could be digital, it could be educational, it could be cultural materials. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a journal submission. Or a chapter in a book. Project plans should include details on how the research will be tailored for and used by receptors as well. So these are some of the new, these are the programs we're offering this year. And so if we move on, John said that I got to talk about the money part. So Round 2 awards are going to be structured over 22 months, and they're going to run from April 1st, 2027 to January 31st, 2029. Award values vary by program, with additional funding available through selected joint funding opportunities. Importantly, we recognize the costs of research are increasing and it's hard to keep up. As such, we've done our best with the resources available to us to increase the size of our awards for this competition. And I hope this will be helpful at making sure you have the resources needed to successfully conduct some high quality research in your lab. What else am I missing? I'm not going to read to you all the numbers on the screen. Everybody's got those, and you can come back and revisit them in the guidelines. So I think I'll go move on now to the next slide, which is about our new targeted call for access, affordability, and adoption projects. So SCN's launching these 2 new targeted calls around access, affordability, and adoption through our Impact LC and Health Economics stream. The calls will support health economics and LC projects focused on the considerations of regulatory, reimbursement, and health system factors that will influence the eventual adoption of cell and gene therapies. These funded opportunities are being done with our joint partners, the Israeli Foundation and Breakthrough Type 1 Diabetes. As such, and to respect our partners and their areas of interest, these projects will be focused in the neurodevelopment space for Israeli and for type 1 diabetes for breakthrough type 1. Okay. What have we got next here, John? Application evaluations. So SCN's process requires the completion of sections that reach beyond just the research proposal itself. These additional sections reflect the nature of our mandate for the translation of regenerative medicine. So please be aware that each of these sections are evaluated with rigor and they contribute to the final funding decision for a project. It's also what sets our applications apart from other organizations. So you want to be careful if you're looking to recycle an application. It may not work. You really need to tailor your applications specifically for what SCN is looking for in an effort to avoid disappointment.
Okay.
Over to you, John.
It's over to me. Thank you, Kate. So we're going to talk a little bit about the joint funding opportunities that are available in this competition. We're very fortunate to be able to partner with two organizations, the first of which is as the Azraeli Foundation. And the eligible projects that Azraeli will support include developing or testing regenerative medicine approaches for treating neurodevelopmental conditions. For this partnered competition, regenerative approaches for childhood onset vision conditions are also eligible. And Azraeli provides a definition there as well for what they consider in scope regarding neurodevelopmental conditions. And they also, their thematic requirements essentially match Stem Cell Network's standard eligibility requirements as well. The other organization that we're very fortunate to be partnering with again is Breakthrough T1D. And as you can imagine, the eligible projects that fall here are development or testing of islet replacement therapies for type 1 diabetes. And the thematic requirements, essentially the projects that are in scope, are listed there. There's 4 of them. And interestingly, Breakthrough also permits international research support. So a maximum of 20% of Breakthrough T1D budget allocation can be used to support the research outside Canada. Stem Cell Network's funding cannot be used to support research outside of Canada, so it would only come from the allocation of Breakthrough. This is a table which compares essentially the standard and joint funding awards, so you can understand the difference there. As Kate's already talked about, the duration of all awards in this program, in this competition, is 22 months, which reflects the period of time that we have left within this cycle. And then these are our standard awards, which have already been discussed, and these are the joint funded award totals that you can see here, which are increased by approximately 20% for each of these. And then this gives you a breakdown as to which organization will be available to joint fund for a particular program. This gives it's essentially a decision tree about how the joint funding works. The long story short here is that there's an LOI decision essentially whether it's eligible, and I've already discussed that in detail. But the difference with the joint funded award is that there is also a decision whether it matches the criteria placed by the joint funded organization for their focus or theme that they're willing to support. Importantly, applicants shouldn't fear the fact that if they don't match that, they're going to then lose out. Essentially, if it's not found to be to match the joint funding eligibility, it's just transferred back into a standard full application for one of SCN's award, whichever one you applied for. So there's no risk to the applicant for selecting a joint funded award. I think that's an important consideration as well there. And then we're coming towards the end, and so in the coming days, there's some resources that will be made available, hopefully by early or mid next week. And these include the research funding competition, frequently asked questions, the program guides for all of the programs Kate's alluded to, including and the joint funded organization guidelines and the LOI instructions as well. The Stem Cell Network has documents, the guidance on research security and the AI policy that you can also access. And then these slides, both in English and French, will be available, all of these documents in English and French. And then a YouTube link to the recording of this webinar will be made available in the coming days as well. Upcoming in October, we'll be providing section guides, essentially how to complete some of the sections that we've talked about, as well as program application instructions and application completion checklists as well. And then in November, there will be a session at TMM regarding that's specifically designed for applicants to answer questions. It will be recorded and we will make it accessible to those who cannot attend TMM, but I suspect that you'll get the most benefit if you're at TMM from that. And then finally, we always have office hours for our applicants. So there will be an opportunity probably during mid to early November to connect with SCN staff to ask specific questions to make sure that you're able to complete your application if you've got any burning questions that you feel that need to be answered as well. So with that, we'll then move to the question and answer section. And we'll start answering your questions. So please do start placing them into the Q&A session. If you've got anything that you would like to ask, then we will start answering them. So here we go. Are grants likely to be more successful if they address more than one of the topics? And this was asked in the context of the description of eligible project categories. I can answer that, Kate. I don't think that's no is the answer to that. So those eligible project categories that we had in place, those are essentially a criteria to assess whether they falls within SCN's mandate and gives applicants an idea of the scope of the projects that will support. Hitting more of those particular projects doesn't make an application any more, I think, competitive. I think it's the merit of the actual problem that they're addressing and the therapeutic, for instance, that they're seeking to eventually develop that's going to be the key determinant there. Okay, next question. Is there a quote specifically, I think that's meant to be quota specifically for early career researchers in the Impact Accelerator or ELSI programs?
No, we don't set quotas.
No. Okay, I'm reading from the Q&A here, so just...
Can a biotech startup apply with no academic PI affiliated with an eligible institution? Unfortunately, no, not for this competition. This competition is designed for researchers, academic researchers affiliated with research hospitals and universities and supporting institutions. It's not for companies directly. The biotech program, our incubation investment awards was the program that we ran this past year that was specific for biotech startups. In this case, an academic PI needs to be the lead investigator, and funding will flow through their institution. So that I would just say, if you want, a biotech can be partnered with an academic PI and their lab.
Next question coming in here. So projects should highlight translation. Does SCN define translation as patent protected technologies or regenerative therapeutics that can be used in hospitals regardless of whether or not it can be patented? There are certain regenerative medicine approaches that are novel and there are no prior art, but are not patentable based upon the intervention. These interventions could still greatly improve quality of life outcomes.
We agree. They can still improve quality of life outcomes, and so no projects and do not necessarily need to be patentable. But we do need to be able to see a translational path and thinking around how the therapies may get to the patient.
Yeah, and I'll just add that the TRLs I think help also guide where we're accepting particular the level of research that we're anticipating coming into the programs as well. So how many proposals are accepted into each program? Kate, what do you think?
That's well, that depends from competition to competition. It's based on size of awards, it's based on length of award. So people will apply to different programs depending on the size of the award, depending on the length of the award program. So the number of proposals we get really varies. So we don't we don't share that information broadly because it's constantly shifting.
But we have no upper limit to the number that we'll accept into a program for of applications.
Yeah.
Right. There's a three-part question. Can ECR applications have co-PIs? That's fairly straightforward. Yes, is the answer to that. Can stem cell-derived organoids for disease modeling be eligible? Yes, is the answer to that as well. And can you expand on what kind of federal partners would be having a CIHR award be listed as a federal partner? And do you want to answer that, Kate?
So, yeah, and this is a really important point, and I'm sure John's going to come back in and clarify my clarification here. So, a federal partner is a federal entity that a Genome Canada, a CIHR, that a Biocan RX that are also all getting their resources through the federal government. We cannot count that money necessarily as a one-to-one partner money. They can be partners, but it doesn't go on, it doesn't get considered as matching money. Whereas non-federal partners, so that could be a charity, it could be a company, it could be your university. Those we can count as part of getting to a one-to-one match.
Yeah, I think that summarizes it well. Just as sort of to reiterate, what we call direct partnering are those non-federal entities, and then what we call leverage partnering is the CIHR, CFI, etc. And those are the ones that, as Kate says, but it doesn't count towards the one-to-one match that we drive towards. Okay, next question. Commercial merit for development projects is limited. How would this be considered in peer review? Are they at disadvantage in scoring?
So
Commercial?
peer review is looking at scientific merit. We want to be able to support projects with strong scientific merit. So that's what our peer reviewers are asked to do. When we talk about translation, it isn't always about commercialization as an endpoint. We recognize that there's going to be therapies and technologies that are not going to be commercialized. So projects that don't necessarily have a clear commercialization route, they won't be disadvantaged. And ultimately, what we're trying to do here is make sure we're supporting high quality research that has a translational arrow that will allow for that research to potentially lead to um, a therapy that will benefit not only the Canadian science system or the international system, but also patients.
Okay. A related question here from the audience. In the evaluation criteria, how much weight is being put on feasibility, innovation, risk of failure, or is it dependent on the program? So I can have a go at tackling this. Um, so feasibility is clearly an important part of the review, as well as innovation. We're looking for innovative strategies to tackling needs or challenges that exist. The feasibility aspect, I think there's a little bit more latitude. We understand, for instance, that an ECR will be developing a research program, and we want them to develop a program that is feasible, clearly. But there's a little bit more latitude for them to be able to work out some of the challenges as they move through their development of a program. When we're looking at the impacts and the accelerators, clearly that becomes more. It should be more refined as you move along the translational pipeline. A lot of these bugs should have been worked out earlier on, and so we're looking to make sure that the applications that come through, they will be evaluated essentially on their ability to move forward in the pipeline, and that means feasibility will be tested there as well. We do recognize that there is a risk of failure with projects when you're developing. You don't have crystal balls about exactly what will happen, but that's why we do have those sections which are related to risk management, essentially for the project, alternative strategies, those sorts of things.
I would suggest that when you're writing and thinking about your applications, if you're taking on sort of something very innovative or something very high risk, make sure you've got a solid team, a multidisciplinary team around you who can help drive that project to success. That's a really important piece of that in scoring is do you have a good solid team who's going to be working on the project?
For the ECR grants, is partnering with established investigators a long-term track with a long-term track record advantageous? I would say not. I think we're looking at the merit of the applicant themselves. I think if for any application, as Kate just alluded to, when you have other investigators that are involved that bring expertise that you may not have, that can be advantageous because it describes that feasibility component that we've already talked about. So I think be judicious, but the applicants themselves are evaluated, and this is an ECR award. It's specifically meant to help develop a program. But so where be strategic, identify collaborators or co-PIs that are going to assist you where you may lack particular expertise. We've got quite a lot of questions, so we're still moving through. So are grants from hematological adjacent research studies also accepted, such as projects from infectious diseases that are involving stem cell research attributes? So it's hard to make essentially calls on eligibility just from like a single description like that. But as I think if you refer back to the language that was used earlier, as long as there is a regenerative nature to the application and it's using stem cells to solve a problem, those sorts of aspects, that's going to be in scope generally. So. How is SCN thinking about in vivo genetic medicine approaches, particularly direct gene editing of endogenous stem cells such as HSCs within its regenerative medicine mandate? It sounds perfectly fine within our regenerative medicine mandate, that does. So endogenous editing of stem cells sounds like you're using stem cells to resolve an issue there as well. So that, from what's written there, that would be in scope. A third in scope question, can you please elaborate on the scope allowed for ECR Jumpstart awards in terms of how fundamental versus translational they can be? Kate, do you want to talk about that?
Stem Cell Network doesn't fund basic research. That's outside of our mandate. Projects need to be able to show that they're going to be able to move forward, that there's going to be a translational arrow. It's not just a project in and of itself, that it will be based on a fuller program. So that's what needs to be thought about as you design your application.
Two questions on company partnering. Does a partnership with a company increase chances of funding? Can it be an American company?
So partnered funding is important, and that increases the chances. It doesn't necessarily have to be a company though. It can be other non-federal types of funding. So a company is great if for instance an accelerator award that shows that there's strong interest and a potential receptor who will carry the project through. Can it be an American company? We do not prohibit partnering with American companies. That's happened in the past. Yeah, it just depends on really on the scope of the relationship, and we would hope that those who are partnering and are involved with American companies, the American companies have an interest, a footprint and plan to continue to work within the Canadian ecosystem.
And I'll just add to that that the purpose of the partnering is to actually enable the best outcome for the research. And so a partner should be selected where it actually will provide maybe its expertise, in-kind support of some variety. Maybe that's, discounts on reagents if it's a company that's supplying those sorts of things, or cash. All of these things can, in their own way, be equally meritorious, and they can bring significant value to a partnership like that. And so, when considering partners, you want to do the best thing for the project, for the outcome, that the thing that's going to enable you to get to the outputs that you've described. The next question, can IPSC lines provided by a foundation or company be considered as an in-kind match? I think that would be reasonable, yes. If they're providing resources or reagents that are going to enable you to complete the research, that would be an in-kind match and would be counted as such. Are indirect costs allowed on the budget, Kate?
No.
No, we do not support indirect costs. It's a fairly straightforward one to answer. One simple question. Our project must be related to diabetes or neuro subject. No, they can be, I should make this quite clear. Stem Cell Network accepts projects across a very broad range of regenerative medicine themes. If it's regenerative medicine and it's in the lung, the brain, the skin, you name it, the organ, we will support it, and we have previously supported in that area. So we are agnostic towards those types of diseases. The partnered projects that with the joint funded award organizations that I described, they must be in specific areas. The standard projects, you can place applications in that are on your particular disease or tissue type or whatever it is, and they will be evaluated as such. To what extent model development using mouse stem cells is favored when they represent a slightly longer translational potential than human stem cell-based models? So this is really a question. If your projects, this is how I'm interpreting this question. If your project's using mouse or animal model tissues instead of human tissues, are they favored worse, I guess, than those using human tissues? So we are looking for, Stem Cell Network's mandate is to obviously to do regenerative medicine, and our objectives are to improve human health. And so if you are using tissues which are non-human, that's acceptable. But the aim is to be developing a therapeutic or outcome that will affect and impact human health. And so obviously at some point there's got to be some contact with human tissues and experimental systems. So I think I won't give advice, but I think we've seen and supported mouse work before, but often there is also a human component included within those projects as well. And I think that helps to ensure that there is a translational pipeline there. Are there extensions to the ECR window if the lab opened during COVID? Yes, is the answer to that. We respect the tri-agency guidelines on the ECR extension, which I believe is a couple of years now. So you can get up to 7 years if it's between 2020 and 2022. I think the cutoff date is something like September the 15th of 2022. So if you started as an ECR during that period from the early stages of the pandemic through to the fall of 2022, I can't remember the specific date, but there is a specific date, then you will have an extension, and we follow CIHR guidelines on that. For ECRs starting labs in the coming year, is there a cutoff for appointment date? Okay. Do you want to answer that or shall I?
You can.
So you must have an academic appointment at the point of award. So you have to have that because at the point of application, we will accept. You may have to have supporting letters from, for instance, your head of department, your prospective head of department. It's just much more difficult, I think, if you haven't actually started in your lab to be able to carry out the work. So yes, in theory. But you must have an appointment at the point when the award would start. I think it would be very challenging otherwise.
Okay, I see a lot of questions coming up around the one-to-one matching and the federal partnership. And so I just want to try to add a little bit more clarity on that before we wrap up, as we just have 3 minutes left. So non-federal partnerships, are they a requirement? Can you explain more? Do you have to have a one-to-one match? The better your matching, the stronger the application. But we also understand, for instance, for ECRs or maybe in an impact situation, there may not be ability to get to a full one-to-one match. That's okay. You won't, is taken into consideration. The most important thing and in our applications is high quality science, showing a translational arrow and also thinking about how you're going to be supporting your trainees and how you're going to be doing your knowledge mobilization that comes from your work. Those are really the key pieces for us. The one-to-one matching is something that's required. The Government of Canada, when they provide us with our funding, the Stem Cell Network with its funding, they say, we want you to have one-to-one. So SCN has been given roughly $50 million. So we have to be able to then show that we've done a one-to-one match on that 50 million. We don't expect that every project's going to have a one-to-one, but we do hope that you will work towards having partners on your projects because it shows an interest in the science and that it also shows that and its relevance and that it will also show that it has potential to be further developed. But no, you don't always have to get to one-to-one. So, and automatically, every single one of your applications is going to have a partner. Your university or your research hospital will be your partner. And so when we put out all of our materials, you'll see greater information around the matching and partner funding requirements. As John noted during our presentation, we will also have office hours. So if something looks unclear and you don't understand, sign up for an office hour. John will be there. Our VP of Finance will be there. And between them and you, we will be able to get you on the right track. Or you can always send us an email if you don't want to take 10 or 15 minutes on a call. But rest assured, everybody has a partner. It's your research institution. Um, but on that, we have now come up to 2 p.m. We're on the hour, so we will need to sign off and thank everybody. We will try to follow up with if you email us with your questions if they haven't been answered. This is the Stem Cell Network is a community. We're here to support you. We want to see you succeed because when you succeed, the Stem Cell Network succeeds and Canadian research succeeds. And that's what we're about. So please reach out. Now, on that, we would be remiss if we did not remind everybody about our Tilla-McCullough meetings, our major general scientific meeting that happens every year. This year, we're in Vancouver from the 9th to the 11th. If you haven't been to TMM, I'd really encourage you to come, check out the website, learn a little bit more. And for those who've been there in the past, we hope to see you again. And we look forward to celebrating our 25th anniversary with you. Okay, on that, thanks very much for joining us. Thanks, John, for the great briefing. And we look forward to touching base with you in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you and goodbye.